Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts. But today, we're doing a really fascinating deep dive into what happens when you finally pull the trigger and book that vacation.
Yeah, because, you think you're just paying for a simple getaway, right?
Exactly. But if you take a magnifying glass to the actual balance sheets and the operational blueprints of this maritime hospitality sector, you realize you're participating in something way more complex.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the industry is operating at a scale that rivals major municipalities right now.
Yeah, you're essentially funding this billion-dollar zero-interest loan for global infrastructure, and you're stepping into a heavily engineered psychological environment designed to capture, well, basically every single dollar of your leisure budget.
Which is a remarkable business model. They are undergoing this massive evolution, but they're doing it while trying to remain entirely invisible to the consumer. Like, the whole goal is to make all that highly complex logistics just feel like effortless luxury.
And that invisible transformation is exactly our mission today. We are looking at how the cruise industry is, systematically eliminating friction, standardizing premium hardware, and managing these just staggering capital costs.
Right. And the stack of mid-July 2026 articles from Cruise News reported by Jed Stafford really pulls back the curtain on this whole arms race.
It really does. Stafford's reporting provides this perfect cross-section.
Yeah, we're basically looking at three distinct pillars here: crowd control logistics, asset monetization, and just sheer financial scale.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the logistics. Because getting thousands of people onto a ship simultaneously is, well, it's arguably the biggest friction point of the entire industry.
Oh, without a doubt, it's the bottleneck.
Right.
Yeah.
So MSC Cruises is currently rolling out something they call digital remote check-in at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. And they're doing this for the inaugural Alaska season of the MSC Poesia.
Which, just for context, carries over 2,500 passengers.
Yeah, exactly. Which presents an immediate logistical nightmare if all those people just show up at the Seattle waterfront at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's a disaster waiting to happen.
So I want to look closely at the mechanics here.
Mm-hmm.
The reporting notes that Seattle is expecting a staggering 2.1 million revenue passengers across 330 ship calls in 2026.
That is a massive volume of people moving through one city.
It is. And the travel times from SeaTac to the two main piers, Pier 66 and Pier 91, are anywhere from 25 to 35 minutes, depending on traffic.
Right.
So under MSC's new system, if you use their official airport transfers, they verify all your travel documents right there at the airport. You completely bypass the traditional check-in desks at the cruise terminal and just walk straight through security to board.
It's like TSA pre-check for cruising.
Exactly. But I have to challenge the motive here. I mean, is this remote check-in simply a clever retail perk designed to, upsell passengers on buying MSC's premium airport shuttle? Or is this just a forced operational necessity to prevent Seattle's ports from collapsing under the weight of 2 million people?
Well, I mean, I definitely see the upsell angle. Capturing that ground transportation revenue is certainly a nice benefit for them. But from an operational standpoint, this is fundamentally about the psychological architecture of the consumer experience.
How do you mean?
Well, think about a traditional cruise terminal. It is, by definition, a non-revenue generating holding pen. It's basically a warehouse where people stand in lines and get really frustrated.
And a frustrated customer is definitely holding on to their wallet.
Precisely. If you study the behavioral economics of hospitality, you know that the vacation mindset does not actually begin until the logistical friction ends.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. So when a customer walks into a massive terminal and sees, 1,000 people snaking through a switchback line, their cortisol levels spike. They enter this defensive, travel-weary state.
Yeah, you're just exhausted at that point.
Exactly. So a cranky passenger boards the ship, goes straight to their cabin, and takes a nap, which means they spend $0 on that crucial first afternoon.
Oh, wow. So by shifting that bureaucratic choke point upstream to the airport, a place where people already expect to be miserable and wait around, they're basically reclaiming the port experience.
They are turning the transfer bus into the preamble of the vacation. The moment those passengers step off the bus at Pier 66, they already have their boarding clearance.
So they just breeze past the crowds.
Yes. They feel like VIPs. Their initial mood is dramatically elevated, which means instead of taking a nap, they head straight to the upper decks, they order a premium cocktail, and maybe they book a specialty dining package.
That is brilliant. They aren't just moving a line, they are genuinely increasing the day one yield per passenger just by eliminating the emotional toll of boarding.
Exactly. MSC is altering the psychological runway, so the consumer transitions into a spending mindset hours earlier.
And MSC plans to expand this to global hotels and other ports, which makes perfect sense. But streamlining the boarding process only works if the actual ship delivers an experience that warrants opening your wallet faster,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Because squeezing higher margins out of boarding naturally forces us to look at how these companies are squeezing margins out of the actual vessels,
Hmm.
especially the older ships that lack those modern, flashy amenities.
The physical hardware has to match the elevated expectation. If you get on board relaxed and ready to spend, but the ship feels dated, that engineered momentum just completely stalls out.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because
Mhm.
the scale of capital being injected into these older assets is just difficult to comprehend. The reporting highlights the celebrity reflection.
A beautiful ship, but getting a bit older.
Right, it was built in 2012. It stretches over 1,000 feet long and holds over 3,000 passengers. And Celebrity is taking the ship completely out of service in late January of 2027 for a multi-month, $250 million bow-to-stern overhaul.
Which is huge. Taking a massive asset offline for months means zero ticket revenue during that time, on top of a $250 million construction bill.
Right. And looking at this through a traditional real estate lens, it just feels counterintuitive to me. I look at that 250 million price tag, and it feels like, I don't know, Apple pushing a massive iOS update to a 15-year-old iPhone.
That's an interesting way to put it.
The hardware is fundamentally aging. So why take a perfectly good vessel out of the water and sink that much money into it rather than just putting that capital toward a brand new ship?
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of fleet standardization and really how these companies monetize spatial flow. You have to understand that the cruise industry segments their vessels into classes. So the Celebrity Reflection is part of their older Solstice-class, but their newer flagship vessels belong to the Edge series, and those command significantly higher ticket prices.
Because the Edge series ships have the newer architectural features and all the high-end dining concepts, right?
Exactly. By taking an older hull and retrofitting it with those specific Edge series amenities, Celebrity is standardizing their brand experience.
So they're bringing the old ships up to par.
Yes. They are guaranteeing that a loyal customer will stay locked into their premium ecosystem regardless of which ship they sail on. But the true genius of this investment is in how it alters the architecture to create new revenue streams out of dead zones.
Walk me through that. How do you find new money on a ship that has already been sailing for over a decade?
Well, you look at the 13 new venues they are adding, they are ripping out the traditional central atrium, which is usually just an open aesthetic space where people just pass through, and they're replacing it with the Grand Plaza.
Right. The article mentioned it has a suspended chandelier and a martini bar now.
Yes. And they're taking generic top deck space and installing Sunset Park, which adds lawn games, outdoor movies, and crucially, private cabanas.
Ah, upcharge cabanas.
Exactly. They are also retrofitting premium dining concepts from newer ships, like the Fine Cut Steakhouse, Trattoria Rossa, and Bora, which is a Mediterranean spot from the new Celebrity Excel.
Not to mention new entertainment like the Boulevard Lounge with dueling pianos and the Parlor Sports Bar. They are essentially turning passive transit areas into active consumption zones.
That's exactly it. They are taking non-revenue generating square footage and transforming it into high-margin profit centers.
So if you want to sit in a private cabana, that's a rental fee.
Right. And if you want a dry-aged steak instead of the included dining room food, that is a massive markup. They're increasing the yield on an asset where the initial construction debt was likely paid off years ago.
Wow. And the reporting mentions the Reflation is going to be stationed in Fort Lauderdale when it returns in March, running short 3- and 4-night itineraries to the Bahamas and the Caribbean. I assume that route placement isn't an accident.
Oh, not at all. It is the linchpin of the strategy. The yield curve on a short itinerary is drastically different than, say, a 2-week transatlantic crossing.
How so?
On a 3-day cruise, passenger turnover is incredibly fast. The consumer mindset is hyper-focused on maximizing a very short window of time.
That makes perfect sense.
People are far more likely to purchase the unlimited drink package, rent the cabana, and book the specialty steakhouse on a weekend getaway just because of the novelty factor.
Yeah, I mean, on a 14-day cruise, by day 10, you are just eating the free pizza at the buffet to save money. But on a 3-day trip, every single night is a splurge.
Precisely. By placing a newly retrofitted ship packed with high-margin venues on a high-turnover route, Celebrity captures that intense day 1 and day 2 spend over and over again every single week.
Wow.
That is how a $250 million renovation pays for itself significantly faster than financing a brand new billion-dollar build.
So Celebrity is finding brilliant ways to squeeze higher margins out of their older hulls. But there is an absolute ceiling to that strategy, right? Eventually, you just run out of dead space to monetize, and you have to build new tonnage to grow your market share.
True. You can only renovate so much.
And when you look at the balance sheets of the companies actively building those brand new floating mega resorts, the financial mechanics are just staggering.
The barrier to entry in this industry is practically insurmountable because those upfront capital requirements are so vast.
Which brings us to the 2025 fiscal report for Disney Cruise Line's UK operating company, Magical Cruise Company Limited.
Yes.
The numbers here present this wild financial paradox that I really need you to translate for me.
Let's hear it.
So, top-line revenue for the fiscal year soared by 20% to just over $3 billion. They are operating at an astonishing 97% occupancy rate.
Incredible numbers.
And they are currently sitting on $1.065 billion in customer deposits for future sailings. By all outward metrics, they are printing money.
$1 billion in cash deposits is an incredibly potent financial tool. But I assume the bottom line tells a different story.
It does. Despite all that incoming cash, their actual profit dropped significantly to $302.7 million.
Right.
The filings cite massive pre-operational expansion costs because they took delivery of the Disney Destiny in late 2025, and they just launched the Disney Adventure in Singapore in March of 2026.
Which is a massive expansion into the Asian market.
And the scale of the adventure is hard to overstate. The reporting notes it is over 200,000 tons and holds upwards of 6,000 passengers, which just completely dwarf their older 85,000-ton vessels.
It really does.
Plus, the filings note they owe over $708 million to internal group undertakings. So I am looking at a company with booming revenue, maximum capacity, but their profits are shrinking. They owe hundreds of millions in internal debt, and they're launching behemoth ships into entirely new hemispheres.
It sounds like a lot.
Are they financially overextended, or is this billion-dollar deposit cushion just the ultimate safe bet? How does this business model actually sustain itself without collapsing under its own weight?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you are really looking at the fundamental mechanics of capital-intensive maritime expansion, especially in a high-interest rate environment.
Okay, break it down for me.
To understand how Disney sustains this, we first need to clarify a crucial piece of industry terminology that you just mentioned, tonnage.
You mean the 200,000 tons for the Disney Adventure?
Yes. When the industry measures a ship in gross tons, they are not actually measuring the physical weight of the steel or the displacement of water.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Gross tonnage is actually a measurement of enclosed internal volume. 1 gross ton equals 100 cubic feet of enclosed space.
Wait, so it's a measurement of space, not weight.
Exactly. So when Disney launches a 200,000-ton vessel, they are launching 20 million cubic feet of engineered revenue-generating volume.
Oh.
It is a floating city designed entirely to capture passenger spending. But building 20 million cubic feet of luxury space requires astronomical upfront capital.
Which explains the massive hit to their profitability. I mean, they are absorbing the cost of hiring thousands of crew members, marketing a brand new product in Southeast Asia, and physically repositioning assets across the globe.
Yes, those are the pre-operational costs driving down the current profit. But the secret engine funding all of this is that $1.065 billion in customer deposits you mentioned.
The deferred revenue.
Right. In accounting terms, it's deferred revenue. But in practical terms, it is a $1 billion zero-interest loan provided directly by their intensely loyal customer base.
That is wild. Instead of going to a bank and taking out a massive loan at a high corporate interest rate to build these ships, they're using the cash their customers gave them for vacations happening like 2 years from now.
It provides massive liquidity. They use today's deposits to fund tomorrow's infrastructure. And that $708 million internal debt owed to group undertakings. That is simply the reality of how massive conglomerates operate. The Walt Disney Company will sweep cash from highly liquid divisions like their theme parks or their cruise deposits to fund capital-heavy construction projects in other divisions.
So just moving money around the family.
Exactly. It's internal ledger management, not a sign of financial distress. They are absorbing a short-term profit hit to establish absolute market dominance in Asia for the next decade. Plus, they have a 4-ship order book extending to 2031, so they need that capital flow.
That completely flips how I view those numbers. But the reporting also touched on costs that have nothing to do with building massive water slides or hiring crew.
Right, the environmental side.
Yeah, it noted that Disney managed to reduce their carbon dioxide equivalent emissions down to 88 kilograms per passenger cruise day. That's a 28% drop since 2019.
That's a significant reduction.
It also highlighted their exposure to physical climate risks, especially regarding their private Bahamian destinations like Castaway Cay and Lookout Cay.
Which is arguably the most critical data point in that entire financial report.
Really? Why is that?
Well, when we talk about reducing emissions, it's very easy to view that through the lens of corporate public relations, a nice sustainability talking point. But in the modern maritime industry, emissions reduction is a strict, brutal financial necessity.
Because of the regulatory environment.
Specifically, the European Union's emissions trading system, known as the EU ETS. It was recently expanded to include maritime transport.
I've heard of this. It's essentially a cap-and-trade carbon tax, right?
Exactly. Any ship over 5,000 gross tons operating in European waters must literally purchase and surrender allowances for the carbon they emit.
So they are being taxed on the actual exhaust coming out of the funnels.
Yes. And the cost of those carbon allowances fluctuates on the open market. If a cruise line ignores their emissions, the regulatory cost of simply moving a ship from Barcelona to Rome will entirely wipe out their profit margins.
Well,
So when Disney or MSC or Celebrity invests hundreds of millions of dollars into exploring alternative fuels or designing more hydrodynamic hulls, they aren't just trying to save the planet. They are desperately trying to mitigate massive, escalating regulatory taxes that threaten their core business model.
which means when a consumer buys a ticket, a hidden percentage of that fare is going directly toward carbon tax compliance, fuel hedging, and, ensuring private islands against hurricane damage.
Exactly. The hidden costs are staggering.
The sheer velocity of money required just to exist on the ocean right now is unbelievable. So what does this all mean? If we synthesize everything we've looked at today, it paints a picture of an industry fighting an invisible war on three very distinct fronts.
It really does. You have the logistical front, where companies like MSC are realizing that the physical port is a psychological liability. By pushing the friction of document verification to the airport, they reclaim the emotional high ground and get passengers into a spending mindset hours earlier.
Then you have the architectural front, where Celebrity is proving that you don't necessarily need a new ship to make new money. By standardizing their premium brands and converting dead transit zones into high-yield profit centers like those cabanas and steakhouses, they can endlessly monetize a captive audience on short, high-turnover routes.
And finally, you have the sheer capital front. Disney illustrates how deferred customer revenue acts as this zero-interest engine, allowing them to build 200,000-ton volumes of enclosed luxury while simultaneously navigating the massive hidden financial burdens of global carbon taxes and climate risk.
It is a masterclass in behavioral economics and capital deployment. And, whether you are someone who routinely books these massive family vacations, or you are an investor analyzing hospitality trends, or you just enjoy pulling apart the mechanics of complex industries, understanding these strategies completely changes how you view a cruise ship.
It really does.
It's not just a floating hotel, it is a meticulously engineered machine designed to extract maximum yield with minimal perceived friction.
And looking at the trajectory of that engineering leads me to a final, somewhat provocative thought regarding where this is all heading.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Well, we discussed how MSC is systematically moving the boarding process away from the physical waterfront, effectively turning the port into nothing more than a highway on-ramp.
Right.
And we looked at the sheer volume of ships like the Disney Adventure, 200,000 gross tons of space that contains essentially every amenity, entertainment venue, and dining concept a human being could possibly desire.
Right. They are entirely self-contained ecosystems at this point.
So if the ships are becoming so massive and comprehensive that you never actually need to leave them to find entertainment, and the physical ports are being stripped of their logistical importance, it raises a serious question about the future of travel geography.
Oh, wow. I see where you're going.
Are we rapidly approaching a threshold where the actual ports of call become completely irrelevant?
No.
Will the industry eventually realize that docking in a foreign city is just an unnecessary operational expense?
That's a wild thought.
We might be entering an era where the ship itself is the absolute singular destination. Future travelers might not even care if the ship docks in the Bahamas or Mexico or anywhere at all. The ocean simply becomes a blank blue canvas for the ultimate, inescapable mega resort.
That is a phenomenal thought to leave on. The idea that the geography of the real world might soon be entirely secondary to the engineered geography of the ship itself, that is definitely something for you to mull over the next time you are staring out at the water from a top deck, wondering what exactly you paid for. Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.